Hello there, Internet. MegaMogwai here, and I got another Legends of Runeterra video for you guys today. And today we're going to do a bit of a different video, as we are going to basically speculate. As you guys know, the Targen region was revealed yesterday in a YouTube video in the Runeterra channel. And, you know, it's time to start talking about the potential champions and what they can do and all that. So I figured that in today's video, we'll just talk about what champions are likely to come with the new set and what things they could potentially do, right? I figured this would be pretty fun, as it's gonna be hard though, because I definitely do expect like new mechanics to come within this set. So even though I can look at a champion and be like, oh, you know, I think this champion's gonna have lifesteal and tough and gonna do this and that, there can be new mechanics introduced, and those mechanics can be introduced to the champion, and that makes this basically way harder. But I mean, to get right, at least. I have fun doing this shit, so I figured I would record myself in a video while talking about it. And yeah, without further ado, let's just jump into it. Before actually starting, I want to preface this by saying that I know that Targen was leaked alongside Bilgewater many months ago. There was like some data mining going on, and they got some voice, you know, basically they got some files with like the voices of characters and stuff. Basically, what I'm saying here is that I always have, regarding Legends of Runeterra specifically, I've always have remained spoiler free. I've never looked into these leaks or anything. I don't blame you for doing it yourself, but let's try to keep it spoiler free in the comment section down below if possible, because I'm not really interested in, you know, being spoiled, right? Like I want to be surprised. I want to wait for like the actual reveals, and yeah, that's how I like to approach it, right? Like I'm not interested in that. So I don't know. I have no idea if there's actually like, if people actually know which champions are coming or not, like if there's any data for that, but I don't want to know, basically, is what I'm trying to say here. All right, so I did want to preface the video by saying that. But yeah, without further ado, let's hop on to Targen. I'm here on the map. In case you guys don't know, it's I can leave this in the description down below. It's mapleagueoflegends.com. I've used this several times before, and I am in a different browser though, because if you open this in Google Chrome, it goes slow as hell. I'm actually using Microsoft Edge for this, which is, I never thought I would go back to Explorer for anything, but for this specifically, it is much better. So as we go into Mount Targen, we see here a mountainous and sparsely inhabited region to the west of Shurima. Targen boasts the tallest peak of Runeterra. Located far from civilization, Mount Targen is all but impossible to reach, save by the most determined pilgrims, chasing some soul-deep yearning to reach its summit. Those hardly few who survive the climb return haunted and empty, or changed beyond all recognition. So basically, the Targen region, more than a region, is just a mountain. It's a holy mountain, right? One of the things that is really gonna, I guess, define this region is gods, you know, immortals, and Zeus, Mount Olympus sort of shit, I guess. Characters that are highly inspired by, I guess, yeah, Greek and Roman mythology, and overall a reference to higher beings that are, you know, more than just simple mortals. I'm not the biggest fan of this, honestly. Like, they're, you know, I'll dive more into it as we go into characters like Aurelian Soul. It's just got kind of like Marvel vibes to me, in the sense that it's like these all huge, powerful beings that interact with mortals, and I'm not a huge fan of that sort of setting for fantasy. I don't think a good fantasy world or story needs, you know, gods. I think. I don't know. I have a hard time being immersed in stories like that, basically. But that's just my own personal opinion. And again, I'll explain a little bit more what I'm talking about when we mention Aurelian Soul. But there are some very interesting potential champions that can come with this region, and some really cool potential mechanics that could be created from this. But I am definitely like, I have said in the past that I have been more excited for the likes of Shurima, and basically Shurima. Like, I really want a Shurima. But regardless, we got Targen, and we're going to start talking about all of the champions here. There's a total of 7 listed here. I don't know if there are more. I'm just using this as a reference. I don't play League of Legends. I will actually play League of Legends this week on a stream, by the way. Like, that's actually happening. I asked it on Twitter, and people seem pretty excited. So stay tuned for that. You know, just making use of my time while I'm... was that my computer? That sounded really loud. Okay. So what was I saying? Yeah, basically... yeah, that threw me off. I don't even know what I was saying. Let's talk about the first... potential champion. Oh yeah, I was saying that there's 7 champions there, but I don't know if there are other sources and there's more champions in Targen. But from what I can see, there are 7. And oh yeah, and I'll be playing League of Legends this week. Let's start talking about the Radiant Dawn Leona. Imbued English. With the fire of the sun, Leona is the holy warrior of the Solari who defends Mount Targen with her zenith blade and the shield of daybreak. Her skin shimmers with starfire while her eyes burn with the power of the celestial aspect within her. Armored in gold and bearing a terrible burden of ancient knowledge, Leona brings enlightenment to some, death to others. Now, when I look at Leona, to be quite frank with you, I am not particularly inspired. This is like one of the most generic fantasy designs I've ever seen. Like this, I could see this character and I could be like, my brain is just automatically like, okay, yeah, just some random fantasy game. Like, it's not particularly, I don't know, unique, and it's a little bit dull in my opinion. A lot of people are gonna get triggered with what I gotta say, but I'm gonna be completely honest, right? Like, I'm not just gonna say, oh, she looks amazing. It's not gonna, in my eyes, she doesn't. She's just generic fantasy hero with golden armor. Yay, Leona, right? I have seen this character, I believe, in yeah, in one of the cinematics, one of the older cinematics, actually. I think Nautilus, Draven, and Gravis were in there. I forgot the name of it, but yeah, it's quite old because some of the designs are outdated, especially Draven. Draven looks really weird in that video. But yeah, I saw her and she was getting her, what was the name? The Shield of Daybreak was getting smacked in by Darius' axe. So, yeah, I thought she died, but you know, they just put a little bit of blood, but apparently she's fine. And yeah, like I said, nothing particularly, I'm not crazy about this champion, nothing, you know, super hyped about her design. But, you know, it's not just about the design. I want to see what she actually does, right? And there's a few things that I found really interesting. So what I'm using naturally to kind of like speculate a little bit what these cards could do is looking at their abilities in League of Legends, right? Like, the development team has a track record of trying to make the champion cards, you know, relatable to like the actual champions in League of Legends. Like, they do things that they do in the game as well. Like, their abilities are directly involved in how the cards are designed, right? Like, Teemo plants mushrooms. Teemo the card plants mushrooms. You know, Garen has regeneration, etc., right? So, regarding the abilities, I have like the ultimate selected first, but we could talk about one that I find really interesting. The passive Sunlight. It says damaging spells afflict enemies with sunlight for 1.5 seconds. When allied champions deal damage to those targets, they consume the sunlight to deal additional magic damage. This could be something that the card does. Like, this could be really important because what this could happen is maybe Leona has some sort of ability that leaves the opponent like vulnerable to spells, right? And what I mean by this is that there could be an ability generated by Leona that makes it so that your a certain unit takes extra damage from spells. Like, that's what Sunlight does here, right? You apply Sunlight, and then allied champions deal damage to those targets. They consume the sunlight to deal additional magic damage. Okay, so it could just be when they take damage in general. Like, it could just be making she could make a unit more vulnerable, but not actually the keyword vulnerable. Just make them like weaker. So it's like she could grant the opposite of tough, basically, onto a unit. That could be a thing. That could be a neat mechanic, and I could totally see that being introduced in the game by Leona, right, with her sunlight ability. You know, maybe it doesn't happen by any means, but I think that could be likely, right? Again, I'm purely just speculating here. I know nothing, in case you guys are wondering. Shield of the Daybreak uses her shield to perform the next basic attack, dealing bonus magic damage and stunning the target. She could stun, potentially, as well, even though I wouldn't find that particularly interesting, but it could be a part of her ability. She could have a long text, like Swain, for example. Swain stuns, but Swain does much more than just stunning. So I think that could also be a factor. I'm not really too inspired by Eclipse or Zenith Blade, but I think it's always important to take the the ultimate into consideration. Like, you can't ignore the ultimate. Like, most of the time, a champion, you know, what the card does in Runeterra is going to be somewhat tied to their ultimate ability, right? Solar Flare says, Leona calls down a beam of solar energy, dealing damage to enemies in an area. Enemies in the center of the area are stunned, while enemies on the outside are slowed. You know what? I've been reading over all these champions before recording this video, and I forgot that the ultimate from Leona also stunned alongside the Shield of Daybreak. So, you know, this could just be a stun champion. This could be actual support for Yasuo, potentially. I could see this being like potentially even like a sort of like an AoE stun effect. And yeah, that could be into account. There's a lot of champions that stun in League of Legends from what I've been learning as I've been looking into them. But the fact that 2 of her abilities stun says a lot, and I think we could potentially have some Yasuo support with this region, and that would be very exciting. I would love for Leona to focus on stunning, because, like I said, we need more support for stun outside of the Noxus region, right? And I would be an advocate for that. But I also like the idea of like the antithesis of tough, right, being applied as well. So that's basically what I expect of Leona. She could have keywords such as tough because of her strong armor, though we know that's not always related. And you know, we see some champions that look pretty heavily guarded, like, or some units like Captain Farron, and they don't have tough, right? So that's not a given, but it could be likely. And I'm gonna say, you know, a champion like this, a 4-drop. I think she'll be a 4-drop or a 5-drop, something like that. So let's move on to the next one. The next one is Diana. I like Diana's design much more than Leona. I think this champion is very interesting. She's cool looking, and the background is also really intriguing. Bearing her crescent moonblade, Diana fights as a warrior of the Lunari, a faith all but quashed in the lands around Mount Targon. Clad in shimmering armor, the color of winter, snow at night, she's a living embodiment of the Silver Moon's power. Imbued with the essence of an aspect from beyond Targon's towering summit, Diana is no longer a wholly human, and struggles to understand the power and her power and purpose in this world. She is a fighter. Leona was a tank, which, you know, I don't think that has as much implications in, but I mean, that makes her more likely to have tough in Runeterra, but that's basically, I think, the only really relevant aspect of that. But she's a fighter, which means she fights in close range with her scythe here, I guess. And her abilities are, you know, somewhat similar between them in a way. Basically, they all revolve around moons, which kind of like makes sense, right? And it says every third, the moon's silver blade here says every third strike cleaves nearby enemies for an additional magic damage. After casting a spell, Diana gains attack speed for her next 3 attacks. Like, attack speed, like, how do you translate that into a card game though, right? Like, could she get an extra attack? Could her attacks deal more damage? Could she hit multiple targets? You know, there's many ways to approach this. As you go over here, you see a lot of these are somewhat similar. The Pale Cascade is, I mean, somewhat similar. Like, I guess it's because they look similar, but they're not really. This was one of the champions that it's harder for me to, like, speculate around, because her abilities are difficult for me to envision in a card game, right? That doesn't mean, you know, that there's not really fascinating things you can do with Diana. And in fact, I expect some, like, that if there are going to be new mechanics introduced, which there should be 100%, I definitely would expect Diana to be one of them, one of the champions packing some of these new keywords. Her ultimate, Moonfall, says Diana reveals and draws in all nearby enemies and slows them. If Diana pulls in one or more enemy champions, the moonlight crashes down on her after a short delay, dealing magic damage in an area around her, increased for each target beyond the first pull. Now this is interesting, because this could have, like, implications regarding some sort of, like, area of effect ability. And it's also important that something that Diana does pretty regularly is she reveals enemies, right? Like, that's something that a lot of her abilities have in common. Like, unless I'm tripping here, but I'm pretty sure I saw other abilities in which she reveals, yeah, revealing them if they're not stealth for 3 seconds. So she has, like, I don't know how you apply reveal onto Runeterra. It would be pretty cool if she could, like, undo elusive as a keyword, right? I would love that shit. That would be really interesting, right? Like, if she reveals elusive units, they no longer, you know, can sneak in their way, right? So I think that could also be another implication for Diana, but I don't know if that would be, like, too specific, right? Like, when you have, like, a a card design that is basically countering a specific keyword or mechanic, then that can lead to a very binary card, right? And we don't want binary cards in Legends of Runeterra. We don't want too many of them. So I'm not sure if this would be overall healthy, but it is a possibility. And I mean, it can always be implemented correctly, right? The design team has come up with some really cool stuff up until now. So Diana is one that I definitely would be looking forward to. I'm excited. Like I said, I like her design. I'm a big fan of the. Is it the Dragon Slayer? No, I saw another one that I really like. Oh yeah, the Blood Moon Diana. Blood Moon Diana is best. And yeah, I like it, and I'm excited to see what they do with it. It's hard to predict, but yeah, we'll see. So let's move on to the next one. The next one is Pantheon. And I've heard about this champion before. Like Leona, I saw her in that video, and that's basically all I knew about her. Diana, I knew nothing about. Like I learned about her this morning before recording this video. Pantheon, I have heard about because I've watched a video on him on stream because people were asking me. Pantheon is kind of like this, sort of like Roman warrior stereotype. Once an unwilling host of the aspect of war, Atreus survived when the celestial power within him was slain, refusing to succumb to a blow that tore stars from the heavens. Cool story, bro. In time, he learned to embrace the power of his own mortality and the stubborn resilience that goes along with it. Atreus now opposes the divine as Pantheon reborn, his unbreakable will, fueling the fallen aspect's weapons on the field of battle. Role a fighter. Basically, it's like a Roman Garen in a way. That's how I see it, at least. His abilities are pretty geared towards melee combat, right? You got Mortal Will. Every few spells or attacks, Pantheon's next spell is empowered. You have Comet Spear, where he throws a spear, basically. There's another one in which he applies a shield, I believe. It's not this one. Dashes to a target, damaging and stunning them. Like I said, a lot of champions stun. As long as the champion doesn't have two different abilities to stun, I don't expect that stun to be carried over to the game because it's such a very specific keyword that you can't distribute it all over the place, right? This is the one I was talking about, the shield. The shield with the multiple jabs right there. And then the ultimate Grand Starfall. Pantheon composes himself and then leaps into the air, landing at a chosen location as a comet. So basically Armageddon. Roman Armageddon. So this is a pretty cool looking ability, by the way. Pantheon is there's many different ways you can take this design and incorporate it onto a card game. Like you can just have him have tough and challenger, or similar aspects to Vi. There is some spell synergy here, or some focus on spells with Mortal Will. Every few spells or attacks, Pantheon next spell is empowered. So there could be some spell synergy similar to Lee Sin, but in a different way, like in the sense that you're dealing more damage with the next spell that you cast. Which, it's definitely a very easy mechanic to implement onto a card game in that regard. It's been done before multiple times, especially in Magic. Besides that, not much to say about Roman Man here. He has a shield, he has a spear, he's a fighter. Again, he could have tough, he could have challenger, and that's basically all I gotta say. I don't have much to work with here. There's so many things you can do with this card that I don't think speculating is. Again, this is kind of like another Diana in a way, right? It's just he could be more vanilla in a sense, right? I look at him and I think about Garen. I think about other, warrior type units. Especially a lot of. He reminds me a lot of Demacia naturally because he kind of looks like that. And we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. I definitely would like to see something more, elaborate. But it's really hard for me to speculate further on this, so that's basically all I gotta say for Pantheon. Let's move on to Zoe. This is perhaps the champion that would be most intriguing to me, at least from a speculation standpoint, because her ultimate is really bizarre, right? For me, at least. Having seen, I don't know all the champions in League of Legends or anything, but from the ones that I've seen, her ultimate, really stands out. And her page is, different from the others because you got YouTube videos here. But I just want to focus on Portal Jump. This is briefly teleport to a targeted position, then teleport back. During the teleport, you can use abilities and attack normally and see over walls. However, you won't be able to move. So I watched this video and you can see she just basically you aim at some place and she teleports there and she's there for a second. She's hey, and then she goes back. So I guess you can teleport there, slap in the face, and get the hell out of there. So that's how I interpret, right? How do you implement this teleportation on a card game like Legends of Runeterra, right? I don't know. I actually don't know. That's why I find it so fascinating. I think if they reveal Zoe, she's gonna have like one of the more, you know, she's not gonna be like really high statted, I think, and she's gonna have some very, very quirky, interesting effects. And I really am very, very intrigued to see how they implement this. Because I think they have to do something with portal jump, right? Like, it has to be something with teleportation. And yeah, in Runeterra, which is a combat-based card game in which you're just developing onto a board, I don't know how, you know, positioning is not, maybe you can apply, like, aspects of which, you know, when you attack, you can, you know, swap positions with something else, like Stand United or something like that. I don't know. It's hard to say, really, but this is perhaps a champion from a mechanical standpoint that I'm most excited for, because I think they can do something pretty wild with her. Though I could be completely wrong and they just don't, you know, touch her ultimate and they focus on other aspects of her. I mean, you have more sparkles after casting a spell. Her next basic attack deals bonus magic damage. So she could, like, actually just be sort of like a buffer that just increments damage from spells the more you chain them. Stuff like that could happen, right? But I really hope they do something with her teleportation abilities, what I'm trying to say, because I want to see what they can come up with, basically. So now we're going to move on to Galactic's, you know, Marvel boy, Aurelion Sol here. Now, I am going to trigger many viewers with what I'm about to say. This is my opinion. This is how I see things. And I know the League of Legends community can be very passionate, and a lot of you love this guy. I've seen, like, on Twitter, there's people who go crazy over Aurelion Sol. They want him so bad. I'm not a big fan, all right? And I'm going to tell you why. And I'm going to ask you to not be mad at me because it's my opinion, and I don't want to, like, undermine you or your view towards him. I just don't like these type of characters in fantasy. I really don't think the fantasy or world, even if it's just a video game, I don't think the whole god thing is necessary. I just find it, like, counter immersive. Like, I actually, it fights my immersiveness into, like, a story, because it's just like, oh, now these mortals are interacting with this, like, almighty being and they're fighting against each other. Like, how are mortals fighting this thing to begin with? Okay, just so you guys understand, like, I'm a big fan of astronomy, right? So whenever, like, I get introduced in anything, like any sort of, like, comic book environment or, you know, fantasy story or whatever, like, with a being that creates stars, like, do you know how fucking big stars are? Like, according to I've actually read his biography. This dude was around since, like, right after the Big Bang, basically, and he was making fucking suns and worlds. And I don't even know if, like, galaxies at that point. I don't know. Like, he's an all, like, immortal being, all powerful, that just generates worlds. And he gets jebaited by a tiny planet with a small civilization. Their intelligence, first of all, should be, like, on, like, so many degrees lower than him. And they trick this guy. They make him wear a crown. I think it's a crown that, like, controls him and binds him. And now all of a sudden he's kind of like their slave in a way. I don't buy that, man. This dude fucking makes suns out of nowhere. He just, like, farts and creates a galaxy, and he got tricked by some random civilization on a tiny planet, like, and now he, like, fights other people. And, like, if this thing who creates stars is gonna fight Draven, who has, like, a couple of, like, sharp blades that spin around, like, how is it a fair fight? I just don't understand. I just don't understand how a character like this belongs in that sort of, like, environment, right? But, you know, just because I don't get it doesn't mean it's wrong, right? But I'm just not a fan of Aurelion. I'm not a fan of these OP fucking characters. I care a lot about the lore. I like stories that immerse me in them, and I'm not a fan of this. I don't like. I just think it screams Marvel. Like, I look at this, it's just Galactus, you know, Marvel shit. Like, I'm not a fan of that. I don't know. And, yeah, that's basically all I gotta say about Aurelion Sol. I'm not crazy about the character, not because of him specifically, but because of the whole concept of, like, having these almighty gods. Just, like, it's whatever. If you're triggered, I'm sorry, but he fucking makes suns, dude. He makes suns. Why is he even spending time with us? He's clearly on another, like, omniscient, like, level. Like, what the hell? Anyways, regarding Aurelion Sol, he's a mage. So you have Voice of Light. He projects a blast of pure starfire, damaging and slowing all enemies caught in and knocking nearby enemies back to a safer distance. Kind of like gives me Final Spark sort of vibes, I guess, but I could be completely wrong. This could be a champion that is focused around spell synergy purely, and yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Besides that, it's hard to really say. It's not, honestly, this is like the champion that I spent the least amount of time reading because I just don't really care that much, to be fair. Stars orbit Aurelion Soul, dealing magic damage when they hit an enemy. Star Surge. Oh yeah, like just make a gap. Do you know how fucking big a gap? We are like in the Milky Way. We are like stuck in this area. All right, like in a small portion, and we will never be able to reach other parts of the Milky Way. And this guy can just make a fucking Milky Way. Like that's a very small Milky Way though. Aurelion Soul creates an expanding disc which explodes to stun and damage enemies when it moves too far away from him. Aurelion Soul pushes the stars farther out, increasing their damage and speed. Aurelion Soul takes off flying for a long distance. I have no idea. I would assume, like I said, spell synergy in some sort of way. Perhaps a great opportunity to introduce some spell-based mechanics. And that's basically all I gotta say about the Star Forger. Now let's move on to Tarik. I like Tarik's design a lot. I call him L'Oreal, you know, because he's got that, you know, beautiful long hair and that like perfect jawline and just like Hugo Boss face. And I don't know. He's funny to me. I don't know why. The Shield of Valorant, Tarik. Tarik is the aspect of the Protector, wielding incredible power as Runeterra's guardian of life, love, and beauty. Shaped by dereliction of duty and exiled from his homeland Demacia, Tarik ascended Mount Targon to find redemption, only to discover a higher calling amongst the stars. Because that's what you do. When you get exiled, you're just going to go to the mountain, and that'll give you an answer. True story. Imbued with the might of ancient Targon, the Shield of Valor now stands either vigilant against the insidious corruption of... Oh, stands ever vigilant, sorry. Against the insidious corruption of the Void. So, this is a support, and it really does like reflect on his abilities. There's a lot of defensive abilities with Tarik. You know, you have Cosmic Radiance, which pulses cosmic energy onto nearby allied champions after delay, making them invulnerable for a short duration. You have also abilities like Starlight's Touch, which heals nearby allied champions based on charges stored. So you have protection and health. Like I said, defense. You got some offense abilities too. I believe Dazzle is offensive, as you have a Beam of Starlight that deals magic damage and stuns enemies. Again, I don't take stun too much into consideration unless there's several abilities to stun. Otherwise, I don't expect that to be translated onto the game. You got Bastion, and then you got Bravado as well. You have, again, there's a lot of emphasis on like spells. I don't know if this is like normal for League of Legends champions, like they all have some sort of interaction with magic in some way, but it feels like really it feels really clear here, right? Like there's a lot of spell synergy. I wonder if that'll be a big theme of the expansion, right? There'll be a lot of emphasis on you know, combos with spells and the likes. Regardless, it's hard to say what Tarik will do, but I would expect some sort of like either barrier or maybe a new keyword in invulnerable. Like that could be a thing, which basically applies like temporary protection. Maybe something like, it could be something like hexproof, and it can be temporary. There's a lot of very neat things you can do with this. He can also potentially heal units as well. You know, he does have the Starlight's Touch as well. So I expect Tarik to be like actually like more of a defensively oriented champion, maybe somewhat of an engine. And something like on the lines of like Shen, for example, right? That's what I would expect from Tarik, and definitely excited to see what they do with them. And speaking of support champions, the last one we're going to be talking about is the Star Child Soraka, which is also, like I mentioned, a support champion and has a lot of similarities with Tarik as well, as she has a lot of her abilities more emphasized on defense rather than offense. We have a wanderer from the celestial dimensions beyond Mount Targon. Soraka gave up her immortality to protect the mortal races from their own more violent instincts. Why would you ever give up your immortality? Like that's something I also don't understand with gods. Like, why? You're immortal. Stay immortal. Don't be an idiot. She endeavors to spread the the virtues of compassion and mercy to everyone she meets, even healing those who would wish harm upon her. Oh, she's like, she's really good. Good girl. And for all Soraka has been seen for this world struggle, she still believes the people of Runeterra have yet to reach their full potential. So, good gal, Soraka. You know, everybody's friend. Kind of like Purple Lux in a way, I assume. Her ultimate is Wish. Soraka fills her allies with hope, instantly restoring health to herself and all friendly champions. So, a step further from Tarik. Just purely, like her ultimate is just purely healing, right? And you have other abilities such as the ability to run faster towards nearby low health allies. So she's like a white mage. Like she's the embodiment of that in this game, right? A star falls from the sky at the target location, dealing magic damage and slowing enemies. Again, there's a lot of these champions that slow enemies. I don't know if this is like a regular thing, but it's different from stun. Maybe slow could also be a new mechanic incorporated and could have some. I'm not sure how you implement that in the game though. Again, there's so many ways you can tackle it, man, but I could totally see that happening as well because we've seen a lot of these champions having effects of slowing down opposing enemies. Soraka sacrifices a portion of her own health to heal another friendly champion. We could see some drain effects from her. Because I believe this effect also drains as well, right? If an enemy champion is hit by Star Coal, Soraka recovers health. Yeah, she could have drain or lifesteal in some sort of way. I definitely expect Soraka to, like, in some aspect of her ability is going to be related to health. Like, there's no way it isn't, right? Because so many of her abilities are revolving around that. So, again, the potential for another defensive champion alongside Tarik, or Tarik. Hopefully I'm not butchering that. And that's basically it. That's what I think about, you know, like I said, it wasn't, like, as much speculation. It's more trying to, like, be open-minded and think about, like, all the potential possibilities for it. But regarding this, I'm very excited for the design potential for this region and for a lot of these potential champions. And obviously, like, it goes beyond that, right? We got to take followers and spells into account as well. But I think there's a lot of flexibility regarding design, and yeah, I'm super eager. I'm actually like, this is the most excited that I've been for an expansion, and that may sound like BS, but it is actually true because now that I've seen what they're capable of with Rising Tides, because for me, Rising Tides was like a 9 out of 10. Like, I don't give it a 10 because there were some balance issues, but from a design standpoint, fuck it, I give it a 10. I think Rising Tides was amazing, like with the powder kegs, with the plunder mechanic, with Deep, even Attune, which was perhaps less exciting, but then you have a champion like Twisted Fate, which is just like the coolest champion in the game. So I like the fact that they were able to do that. I can't wait for what they come up with this, man. I really can't. I'm so excited, and it's just a matter of a few, basically 15 days from now, a couple of weeks. So we're almost there, and that's all I gotta say. What do you guys think? If you guys have any cool ideas regarding like mechanics and what you guys think, how to implement slow, for example, amongst other things, do you guys agree? I'm gonna get some hate for the Aurelian Soul comments. I don't care, man. I gotta be honest. I don't. Oh boy. Regardless, that's basically it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's a different one. I know you guys are used to gameplay. I rambled for quite a bit, like talking about 30 minutes about this shit, and maybe it's a little bit excessive, but I had a lot of fun doing it, and hopefully you guys found it at least mildly interesting, and you let me know what you think, and are excited for the expansion. That's all I gotta say. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for daily Legends of Runeterra content. I'll see you guys tomorrow.